Latest episode of Talking Property Development. I'm John Kenel. Today I'm joined by Andrew Crosby and Blair Chappell of Williams Corporation. We have got a action-packed chat for you today. Blair has a wealth of experience in the property development space. We're going to ask him a bunch of questions. We'll talk a little bit about the property market. Without further ado, Andrew, could you introduce Blair for us?
Yeah, look, Blair is a co-director of Williams Corp. They've built over 2,000 houses in the last decade. According to my data, which is always 100% correct, obviously, a couple of years ago, they were the leading builder of homes and certainly affordable homes in this country. They have done a lot for New Zealand in getting tenants and people into homes. So, Blair, you can do a little bit more of how you came to being, but welcome.
No, thanks, John. Thanks, Andrew. It's really cool to be here. Probably don't want to draw out the introduction too long, but I suppose it's been 12 to 14 years-ish, give or take, kind of forget over time, that we've had Williams Corporation. And we sort of started out with doing physical contracting on site, temporary fencing, renovations, building carpentry work for other developers and group home builders. And then sort of, long story short, went and did one spec home, which turned into four, which then turned sort of buy the old home, renovate that, subdivide the backyard and put one house on it. And that turned into sort of then doing our first duplex. And then that turned into our first block of 5 two-story townhouses. Then we just sort of get that, you finally figure out what you're doing and what actually works. And then all of a sudden, you sort of put your head up one day and somehow you've delivered on average a house a day for the last 5 years. So very much a simplified version, but it's been a really cool journey. So I look forward to this podcast.
So why do you think you settled on townhouses? What made you settle on townhouses?
I suppose the main thing was we did so many of buy the old house, renovate it, subdivide, build the house on the back, and we just weren't making any money doing that. One, because obviously you're turning over extra money because of this front house. Two, you're then dealing with an old house, which you're theoretically liable for if something goes wrong with it. And we just thought, how do you actually make this sort of thing work? And it was sort of at that turning point of, we need to do one more project and don't really have any money if we get this wrong, and we've got to figure out a way to actually get this right. And it was just the whole scales of economy of, if your site needs a geotech report, whether you put in one house on it or 5, the geotech report's the same survey, etc., etc. And that
scales are a real difficulty, isn't it? That's a problem. I know we for a while, we were years ago buying sites with a big enough site that you could put a minor dwelling in the back, and you'd renovate the front, put a new minor dwelling in the back, and then sell it as effectively a dual key type rental. And the numbers worked really well. This is going back probably 8 or 10 years. But the amount of work involved, we probably spent more time on renovating the front house than we did building the back. And then you still only had one development. So you had 2 houses for sale. And what's the margin you're going to make on 2 houses versus doing a block of 10 or more?
Yeah, it's just, I suppose it was the difference of making no money or actually having a viable business model of doing development. So I think just that, I still don't quite understand how greenfield developers can buy a section of land developer, build that one house, pay everyone on the way through, sell it, competing with every other builder, and actually make money short of people that are small-time operators. Hence why I
don't think they make a lot of money. I don't think they do.
And I always maybe need to know something I don't. But then, yeah.
The way I see it, you actually you're making your money by subdividing the land, right? If you buy a big old site with an old house on it, and you split it into 8 lots, well, now you've got 8 sections that you can sell. And the fact that you've got to build on it that's actually just an annoyance, right? If we could sell those 100 square meter sections, we would, wouldn't we?
I've always said like it's never one place there where there's a margin. It's sort of like you said, doing the land subdivision or deciding to not have a main contract and manage that build process yourself. Do you have an internal sales team? Are you a self-funder that you don't require borrowings? And it's all of those combined that makes or breaks the difference. That's why I just can't see why a single house on someone else's land works.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of builders who are playing developer, buying it, hooking up a buyer on a design build contract and making it, 5 to 7% margin really. As far as the large developers do it, because I've been in that game, buying paddocks and turning them into houses, it's a long-term process, and you've got to have the market go your way a couple of cycles, not just one cycle. You know,
Patience.
you get and sometimes it doesn't work out. So yeah. Now townhouses, because you've got the townhouses. What's your perfect project? Do you think? What's your perfect size project where you guys are at now?
Our average site at the moment for townhouses is probably about 15. Actually, no, based on under construction, probably more like 25 to 30 townhouses. But the smaller dwellings are probably the equivalent of, say, 22 bedrooms. But the goal sort of always from signing the land contract is have all consent within 6 months and then all construction title and code done within 6 months. Sort of keep that exposure to the market under 12 from start to finish, which is, sometimes up to the powers above it, council and government and consultants. But ideal is sort of that 20 odd townhouses where it doesn't get so big that you've got complications with any more consultants or infrastructure upgrades, but not so small where you get to the end of it and go, there was a lot of work, if not the same amount of work, for significantly less return on investment and time.
So you've managed to go from doing the odd development to building a successful company with quite a number of staff with multiple locations. It's something that not many developers have achieved. Like, how'd you go about doing that?
I suppose it's one of those things where you have to learn what not to do. There is a degree of, when we started Scale, we didn't really have any staff. So we had one in-house designer, one salesperson, one accountant. And I think that year we built 180 homes. In the following year, we did 336 home deliveries. And I think we still had sub 5 staff. And then we sort of wanted to scale up because it's human nature. When you run out of houses to sell, you then want to create more of the products that the market wants. And then we sort of learned the hard way in development. It's not a business where you can easily go, let's have a project manager here, one there, a team of 5 salespeople, etc. Especially where as the market gets busier, it's actually probably the time you should just go on holiday because it becomes dysfunctional by the end of that cycle. So we're actually now at a point where we've got sub 10 staff on wages in New Zealand. And then we've just got one project manager in Auckland and then sort of centralised management out of Christchurch from a design perspective, accountancy, all that sort of stuff. I think developers don't normally do what you said because either they're smarter than me or they're not as aggressive as what we wanted to achieve, or the market doesn't have such an aggressive upside where you've run out of stock and you've got buyers just wanting it. So you sort of do what you think's right, and then in hindsight learn that it's not a very easy business to scale.
Well, it's the ups and downs in the market are the difficulty, isn't it? I mean, you can scale up, but then when interest rates go up and the pre-sales fade away, then what do you do with your staff? That's the tough part of it.
I suppose when the market scales and the market gets busier, everything gets harder because consents take longer. Then materials get harder to get, prices go up, contracts become more difficult to deal with. And it kind of becomes where it's like driving up a hill with your foot down on the wrong gear. Everything should be going better, but it's not. So I think now it's more keeping the business a sustainable, same size or similar size, but still with growth and innovation, but not trying to meet the market based on how aggressive the market's been on your product. It's more just accepting that there's going to be times you run out of houses and go on holiday.
So how do you keep... Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I reckon the bigger you get, the less efficient and less ability to save costs on construction. You've got so many people, you've got people looking after people. It's, and then the market turns and you've got 70 families to feed, really. So you have that whole scenario as well. Yeah, sorry, John.
I was just wondering how you, because I've always had a small team. How do you kind of manage them effectively and sort of keep them motivated and keep them on track, especially across multiple offices?
I suppose I've now defined it as a small team of, like I said, sub 10 people. And of that, it's made up of 3 accountants, 3 designers, 3 project managers, and 1 marketer, roughly. I suppose we're big believers in, we use Google for pretty much everything we do. So Google Chats. And just having the right people in the right seat. And just, that's obviously easier said than done. We have to go through a lot of people to find the ones that you can tell they're the people that'll be the right fit. There's no question about work ethic, sort of any issues. It's the people where it's, oh, who would you go to war with? If you got stuck with a flat tire on the side of the road at 3 a.m, who would you call? And you pull out your phone and you sort of know really quickly who your friends are or aren't based on who pops into your head. And I think it's where the team in a business isn't too dissimilar. But it's very, very hard to get. It's just based on how many people have had and now don't have just through that decade plus. There's sort of less than one set of hands worth of the ones that you know are like the all-in, which makes all the difference. It's like, it's not just that person does so much work, we'd have to replace it with 3 people. It's who has the meta knowledge, learns the meta knowledge, applies the meta knowledge, holds people accountable, and gets the outcome as well. And isn't the archetype where they think they're doing well, wants a pay rise, wants another pay rise, decides to do an OE, etc., and actually commits to being all in.
Absolutely.
No working from home policy at Williams Court?
Well, I work out in sign office enough hours where you could nearly deem this as working from home.
That's a good way of looking at it.
No working from home. Like, we're more of a coming to work, one, I think is healthy, but as far as if someone wants to start at 6 a.m. and finish at 4, or someone wants to start at 9 and finish at 5:30, I don't really care about those sort of slight flexibilities. The doctor's appointment, I don't really care, but it's not, I trust you to get your work done, so work from home. It's, I trust you to do your work, so I'm not going to micromanage you, but you need to do work when you need to do work.
Well, it's hard in construction, right? You can't build the house from home.
Yeah, and it's just miserable as well, because it's those tiny situations in construction where someone's working from home, like, oh, I can't go see them, I should book a Zoom in with them, then you forget what you're about to ask them, and that could have flowed on to stopping a huge issue, and you don't really realise it at the time. It's just been involved more often because they're right there.
Now, gentlemen, we've got 15 minutes before the OCR goes up or down, or stays flat. What's your prediction? Because we can do that live, right? It's 1:45 here. What's the prediction? John?
I'll go, well, it's going to be 25 or 50 with an outside chance of 75. But my money's on, I want it to be 50, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if we only get 25 and another 25 in November.
What do you reckon, Blair? It's going to save the industry.
I think I was similar. I'd say 25, even though I think it should be 50, and then 50 on the next one. Just because Adrian was a little bit unpredictable at times. Also, I'm very bad at, since I don't gamble, there's enough of that in development. So normally what I go for is what's going to happen. So hopefully the same 0.25, that means it's going to be 0.5.
Right, okay. I reckon it's 0.25. I don't reckon they've got the guts to do it any larger at the moment. The banks are, my God, everyone's anticipating it, right? And then this outside chance of 5%. I think they're all dreaming, but who knows? Now, will that improve?
I think there's definitely justification for 50. I mean, it's not just the real estate industry or construction that's struggling. It's across the board. I don't know anyone who's doing really well in any industry at the moment. And then we've got in the background all this geopolitical risk, not just Ukraine, but the Middle East, and, oil prices have now spiked again. And if I were in charge, I'd be trying to make it easier for the people of New Zealand now, get some savings back, get people putting some money in their bank, get the businesses kind of running again, making some profits, kind of almost, building a little bit of resilience again.
I think what needs to happen though with that is that we need to stop measuring GDP as what it is measured by and measure it per capita. Because there's probably a whole lot of people a whole lot of industries that need to completely disappear, be retrained in new industries like history's always shown us is necessary, to make the right people be more profitable, to support the right people that provide value, to increase the salaries and take-home pay, to actually make a difference, where it's just spread too thin, where everyone's just exists, and an interest rate, in my opinion, is not going to change their lives fundamentally, short of accepting there's a lot of people where if their jobs weren't there anymore, no one would actually notice for a long time.
So a lot of, like a lot of the people that we have contact with in the construction industry who tick boxes. They fill out forms and templates, and they tick boxes because council consultants told our consultants that they need to fill out these reports. They do I think I know we're going a little bit off track now, but in terms of the construction industry, it's almost as though the process that we're in with all of these consulting reports is an industry in itself. They've kind of lost sight of the end goal, which is building more homes. I mean, I would spend 90% of the time on getting consent for a block of townhouses on consulting, and probably 10% on the building itself. Would you be? Where would you be, Blair? You know what I mean? It's just there's just so much time spent just on paperwork.
I suppose, yeah, you're looking at it, it's like it's a rent-seeking industry in the sense of consciously or subconsciously, if you're a consultant, say you're a urban designer, God forbid, why would you ever just accept another urban designer's report? What incentive is there to not say, I disagree, I think we should use this tree species? Or I disagree, I think the path should line up or be oscillated, or stagger, whatever that word is. Like, it's an industry, there's no incentive to actually make it easy, because then over time, the easier you make it, the less you're required. And that's, I think, the problem. And then as a developer, you go, I've got, say, 12 consultants needed. Council either pays the equivalent 12 or has them in-house, 24 people, $200 an hour. So it's now $4,800 if each person has to update one set of plans with one revision. And you go, how will that ever work long term?
And why is there a geotech arguing for geotech? Don't they bloody go to university and learn geotech stuff? You know, why don't you get a geotech report? They put their professional signature on it, and we can rely on it. And there's not two geotechnical guys, just, one at council, one that you're paying, arguing with each other over, that's not subjective, that's objective, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's just, I think, and they always sort of blame it and go, they count as liable if anything goes wrong. That's why building consents are also thorough in processes, etc. And also consultants are guilty of capping their liability at 2 times fee. So they're not going to be seen or not really care if they get held up with a big cock up. And then that's always going to be the client or developer that's responsible for the problem. And then the council go, they're liable, but how many homes have they recladded at their cost and all? Were they actually there saying, hi, we're liable, we want to fix this problem with you. We've made it a pain in the ass for you, so now we're going to come to the party and fulfill our side of the bargain. No.
Actually, did you see the Jeff Barronson? I'm not sure if you know him. He's the head of building inspections at Auckland, and he's doing some posts now on social media of 30% of their cladding and pre-cladding inspections have failed, and he's got the video goes up, and it's just some shocking things, some shocking stuff that's happening in the building industry.
They're not always,
at least in Auckland.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. So that doesn't help them either, really.
No. But then also, no matter what the plans they were engineering or whatever, that's not going to change what happened on site based on people being incompetent, not good enough at their sort of professional trade. But then also, that's why I'm always a fan of base principles of don't use an internal gutter, don't put a flat roof on it, have sit beams, have low risk cladding, use a solid air barrier, and just use base principles. It's like an acoustic system. It might test up to IIC 55 for an impact test, but it means if there's one tiny element of human error, it won't pass. Why not use a system that tests way above, accepting that there is a high chance at some stage someone might not put it in exactly correct, but then it'll still function in an above required manner.
This apartment project that you're doing in Christchurch, it's a little bit different to your townhouses. So what got you involved in this apartment project, and what have you found? And, you're getting into the detail we see on your social media. So tell us about that one.
Yeah, it's a really cool project. So it's 2 6-story apartment buildings with 3-story mixed use, and then 2 and 3 terrace houses in the complex, about 111 dwellings overall. And it was a unique opportunity to purchase some land off Otakaro in Christchurch, so 10 years after East Frame was awarded to Fletchers, just because they haven't completed enough, so the government was able to sort of reallocate it, so to speak. And it was one of those things where we had to meet the objectives of what they wanted, and that was reflected in the land price to do the apartments. And what I sort of learned is I was involved in the initial design stage and sort of the fundamental things of going, let's just have one service shaft that then connects into the hallway, that then runs down the hallway and then connects into each apartment. Let's keep every floor the same, and then let's make sure all our RT walls are just part of the concrete tilt panel. And then I said, and I want to do a timber in situ floor, so the plumber's not working at heights, not doing pipe lagging, not having a shit ton of core drilling. And so the plumber can work on the ground, put all his pipes in, then we can put our joists down, cover the floor up, and if there's ever a leak in that apartment, the person below is never going to know or be in base principles like that. And then during the construction, I sort of thought, oh, okay, I'm going to build this soon. Let's start going through the fundamental sort of specific design details. And literally the more I've generally paid a consultant, and if one of them's listening to this, I'm not throwing stones at all of you, so we've done great jobs here. You know, the worse it is. Just things such as you're about to pour your first floor, and you need to put your fire collars in because you don't want to have to core drill them. You want to be able to just have them there when you break out the poly or whatever it is, and you go, we need 2 fire collars, 80 mil and 100 mil for ribbon infill. What's specified on the plan? And not one of them give me an answer. And it's like, what do you make? Fire engineer says talk to the passive fire person. It goes round and round in circles, and then for 3 days you figure out yourself how to become a passive fire person, and you find this great. If anyone's listening to this that's doing ribbon infill, all proof fire collar is fantastic. Custom, just a black thing that's about $20. You put it on the timber, you put 3 screws in it, you pour your floor around it, chop the top off to the right height. But it's like, how can I spend so much money on professionals to draw the plans, consent, get back and forth, make sure compliant? And when I say what kind of fire collar is it for every penetration through every floor, no one's done that. And what I've learned is that they're focusing on all the wrong things, but they think that's the right aspect to be focusing on and drilling down on with RFIs and whatnot, but just the basic stuff isn't actually covered. That is the basic stuff that will actually make the difference to building performance or not. And it's just incredible the wastage that happens in the industry and the difference of really analysing every aspect of the build, such as why we're using this fixing that comes from the UK Pelty for the cavity pattern, when we've got this one here which is stronger, and instead of being $3 a bolt, it's $1 a bolt, and we can remove 12,000 fixings by increasing the spacings of 1, the cavity pattern, and 2, the bolt fixings. And I had to argue with the facade engineer multiple times because in his mind the cavity pattern was upside down. He was allowing for what's called packing, where the flange of the cavity pattern, he didn't realise that was flush to the tilt panel because he had the cavity pattern the other way around. After he told me he'd been on site for 50 years, no one will ever sign this screw off. And you just sit there and go, am I in a comedy skit? Is Monty Python going to say, I'm joking?
Did you get the council there yourself to have a look, or how did you resolve it?
I literally just, it's like the fire quality, just go, okay, who will know this? And it's just basic principles and go, why would he let me use it? Okay, he's mentioned packing. I think that could be what the problem is. And then, okay, cool, Helshi. Am I correct that we should be able to use this? Okay, can you send the engineering details through? And then it's just working through really logically of what's next on the project. Okay, cavity patterns are coming up. What are they? What's the fixing? What's the cost? Who's the supplier? And when you look at something, you go, that doesn't seem to make sense. And then when you challenge the professional, they go, you have to have a pack in, and in your head you go, well, the cavity pattern fixing points flush the tilt panel, so why is there packing? And then all of a sudden, the reply I got after this, we went back and forth for ages. After I explained that I think he's incorrect and there is no packing needed, and after he tried to cover it up by saying he thought we were talking about window detail, after I pointed out I wasn't, pointed out the Helshi strength, had the letter from the structural engineer that as far as B1 it was compliant, all I got was, this is okay from the starting engineer.
And that's probably $100,000 fee on that project? On the facade?
I can't even talk about some insurance costs because it makes me feel physically ill. And the only reason we have a facade engineer is because when we got RFI'd, it was easier for someone to volunteer or do a facade engineering PS2 that actually answer the simple questions. And then we've got 2 identical buildings that the council decided to use different processing officers for. One had a PS2 facade requirement with on-site water blast and all the shit, just unsure it's waterproof. One had 3 additional PS3s and no facade engineer PS2. And I pointed out the error and said that's why we should remove the facade engineer's PS2. Instead, they said, thanks for pointing out, we'll now add the facade engineer PS2 requirement to the other building. When I said it's 6 stories high, it's all concrete construction for the elements. Every balcony is cantilevered and covers the other balcony. Every balcony has an in situ floor, which would pick up 9 months of rain collection and block down once before it would overflow. What could possibly go wrong in this building? And what you're saying is that by fixing this window to this wall, and it needs a water blast and facade engineer, for some reason that's completely different than a 3-story timber building, which is statistically far higher to fix. And we're putting cladding over the tilt panel on a cavity pattern because I just want us to look really cool and be a bit of a legacy project, when it doesn't actually need to because the tilt panel could be the clad.
This risk, these councils, and they blame it on risk. I'm not sure if it is just risk, but do the councils need to be relieved of the risk of
I don't think they actually
developers
carry the risk
building
they think they do.
buildings?
On paper, they carry the risk, but based on history, whenever they come to the party and written checks for all of these failed buildings, and then, yes, I think they should be relieved from the risk and not carry the risk. Yes, I think there should be an insurance option which carries that 10-year risk, but then also less intervention is always better. And in a perfect world, it would be people standing by their products. And if we didn't have to pay all these consultants to do these things who are never around if something does go wrong, so they've either kept their liability or they've moved on, all developers would actually have so much more money to push into their projects, and they'd probably do the right thing if they're the right developer. Where it's like, instead of the consultants' fees on this job that probably aren't needed, here's an indoor pool for the communal area for the residents, and every house gets furniture. Or, hey, let's just put more concrete in here because we're not sure how much we need. Let's just chuck some more in it because we did that other job 8 years ago that had a bit less. And then you take it to the engineer and say, we think this will work. And it probably would. Think of the 80s, not that I was around. Wellington was like built heavily around there with these high rises. And I reckon they just thought, we think this is what we should do. And then you look at when they had the earthquake and the new BNZ building had to be pulled down. The old one from the 80s was perfect. Where the Empire State built 14 months construction, about 103 floors built in the 30s. It baffles me every day when I sit here. How the hell did they build that in 14 months? In the 30s, and it's still an iconic building. And yes, about 7 people died. But in New Zealand, that would take probably 25 years. And on average, we probably would also have had 7 people die. And I just can't fathom how they did that back then, even if it didn't need consideration from a construction perspective.
I know, incredible. It is an incredible building. And at that time, I mean, you had no computers. Everything would have been calculated by hand, all hand drawings, just really low tech. And it's such an iconic building.
I think they built the first 10 floors before they'd finished actually drawing the rest of it. So it was like I always joke with this project that it's a design build because what's next, and then we redesign it and then we build it correct with the help of the people actually building it. I think the Empire State Building is probably similar. They did it once and right.
As long as you complete it.
In my 20 years in development, I haven't seen much innovation around construction. Really, very, very little. What do you think's coming? What innovation's coming next?
It's everyone focuses on these brand innovations of let's just switch to do full modular houses that are imported, or switch to a whole new framing system or whatever it may be. But I think it's more, I always say to people, if you pull out your iPhone and you go, okay, I've got a black iPhone, and you look at the original iPhone from whenever they first came out, it's probably, 15 years ago, give or take, you go, these are actually very similar. And what you learn about something like the iPhone is because they're iteration and improving the same product over time for a long period of time. Whereas we're in an industry where let's build an apartment building or let's build a 2-story family home. Let's do all the things that we got wrong with change and do it again differently. Let's get our considered drawings that were paid for. And let's never ever do it again and change it because we think we should be special and have a very different house than another one. And then zero value engineering because of that. So if anything, innovation is just thousands of tiny small increments that no one will actually notice until they live in your product and a comparable product for a period of time.
What about 3D printing? I know there's a crowd here in Hamilton who are starting to 3D print walls, concrete walls. I don't know much about it, but it seems to be a trendy new thing.
Yeah, it's just like, don't get me wrong, I'm big in innovation and sort of balancing that equation of innovation and risk. And I think there's concepts where something like a 3D printer could work, and you go to a greenfield subdivision and sort of 3D print your house. But then it's kind of with modular construction. It's how much does that factory need to do per year to cover the overheads of the factory that only specialises in modular construction? And then based on that, what exactly identical units need to be done in one project to make modular more cost efficient, time efficient? And then you go, well, what projects in New Zealand fit that brief of, say, 30 identical unit types, and a factory needs to produce 2,500 a year to make it economically viable to run that factory. And you go, okay, well, there's actually not a market for that.
No, it's niche. There's niche. I mean, and people say scale, but it doesn't work in England. Legal and general shut theirs down. Doesn't work in America.
And you're going to run into problems with urban design, right? If you're putting in 30 of the same little boxes, that's no go. They want you to step back and forward and change color and change materials. And I mean, we're having to put 3 different materials on a small block of townhouses to make it look pretty.
Can you try something for me, John? Because this idea is so stupid. I think it's going to work. I just haven't had the chance to try it yet. Because I think you should go and whether use ChatGPT or Stretch the Truth. And then when you go to your consent lodge and urban design report, explain how you've got everything peak design efficiency to minimize your carbon emission impact. And if they want you to change the window size of the cladding, you're happy to, but all the suppliers will have to reorder the aluminium because the sizes have changed. The cladding's going to be framed from a different country and you can't get efficiencies. And you're happy to do it, but they need to sign off that they're happy to increase the emission of that construction by X amount, which ChatGPT can calculate. And I reckon it's so dumb, an urban designer won't put their name to it and say, we'd rather you have this colour for this impact on the environment, and then get your suppliers a supporting statement.
Yep, that's a good idea. That could work, especially because everything I do is made from recycled plastic, bamboo, and carbon-reducing concrete. No, it's not. But
John, if you have to change your cladding, you now don't have the budget to put that eco-friendly concrete in you were going to. And you can no longer put solar panels on. Now you've got your cost of interest for another 2 weeks, which means you now can't do, I don't know, recycled whatever for your landscaping.
Yeah. Actually, on solar panels, why are we one of the only countries in the world, and a country that has actually a lot of sun, where we don't get any kind of subsidy for installing solar panels?
But why do we need a subsidy? Because any subsidy is the taxpayer has paid tax and work is now covering some of the cost for you, the other taxpayer, to do what you are doing.
That's true. That's true.
So it's like,
no, we don't want subsidies, but we could make it fairer. Like when I export, I get next to nothing for my power, and when I import, I pay full price. So some countries do have some requirements around that the retailers need to pay you, a fair price or the same price. So if you're exporting at 12 o'clock midday, you would get the same price as exporting as if you were importing.
But then
at least you'd speed up the payback period.
Yes, but then there's all the whole counter arguments of, well, if I'm guaranteeing you 20 cents kilowatt or during the day, it costs me far more at 5 p.m. to sell you that power. So I can't then offset that by giving you that power at a cheaper rate during the day just because you're solar, because now you're actually costing me money. But that's why I think in Australia, I can't remember what state it was, as solar started to become more popular, the lines company just pretty much screwed it for everyone, dropped the kilowatt rates right down, puts the daily connection fee right up. So unless you're off-grid, it wasn't economically viable. Then you get into the whole anti-competitive and monopolistic practice of what isn't acceptable. I've always had a grievance with Vector or Ryan or whoever, and everyone's bloody good in Christchurch, but Vector in Auckland, they're limited to how much they can make based on a fixed return on their balance sheet per year. So the best way to grow your balance sheet is make developers pay for more infrastructure, and so every site needs to have a transformer. And if you're Wellington Electricity, you then can say, we don't stock transformers in the country, so we have to order one in for you, and you wait 9 months for a transformer because of the Swiss Canal. And then it's like, well, at the end of the day, if that power connection is this for your development, then you add your GST and your margin, then you sell your house to the customer. It's always the customer pays, and it's always generally something that is intended to be a good policy, like limiting a cap return on a monopoly's balance sheet, then it ends up with unintended consequences.
Well, like this new policy now where the government is funding some developers with taxpayer money.
Yeah, the taxpayer. There's no government fund. It's taxpayer fund.
Yeah.
What's the unintended consequences of underwriting, the government choosing and underwriting developments?
Long story short is you pretty much have the risk of devaluing other customer purchases since the government's done it at a discount for their purchase, and that valuation rules are out of date and won't reflect true cost of things because they don't treat it where there's a bulk client, they got a discount, that doesn't mean everything's worth less. Much like if I go buy 10 Toyota Hiluxes and get a couple of grand off each one, Toyota Hiluxes are still the same price, whereas in housing values see it differently. So it could be at risk of valuation equity within that development for other customers. And then there's unintended consequences where you have customers that have bought into a development and end up with a minority of social houses in them, which, without being political, whether it's right or wrong, I personally don't think it's right. And as a developer, you ruin your brand reputation by the customer not being aware that community housing just bought 20% of the project and their house has all gone down in value, one, because of that, two, because of the comparable sales, and three, projects that shouldn't have gone ahead go ahead. Then I don't actually think that will happen. And then also four, you get lenders and then put pressure on developers for small incentives with a cheaper rate to get them to take the underwrite to then further protect the funder or lender.
I don't like the fact that developers who have already, because one of the requirements is that you need consent, but you also need to have attempted to obtain finance and not have been able to obtain it. So that means you've put your project in front of professional lenders, in front of banks, in front of second-tier lenders, and they've said, no, we're not going to lend you money. Well, you would think that those guys, those professional lenders, have some idea of what a good project is and what it isn't and how much risk's entailed. So if they say no, and then the government says yes with our taxpayers' money, it's just, I don't know.
You jack up your sales prices, right? You jack up your sales prices. That jacks up the underwrite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's all these. I mean, I saw it in the first round of when Kiwi Build, before it was, well, in its infancy, they did a lot of underwrites for developments, and a lot of developers cashed them in until Kiwi Build turned into something we buy government land. And yeah, some projects just went through and they're pretty shoddy and average. The taxpayer funded them. So yeah, what's the economy, John? Are we in the shit? What's happened to the OCR?
Yeah, good
What's
point.
the news? What's the news? I know the news. We're all wrong.
75.
No.
Really?
Not that wrong.
Found lie, John.
But they have done 50. So the economy's in the shitter.
Done 50? Okay.
That's why I called it 0.25, because I knew that way would make it 50.
That's scary a little bit, isn't it, that they've done that? My God, how they changed their tune.
Official cash rate decision. Reserve Bank cuts rates by 50 basis points to 4.75%.
But then also...
Well, there you go. So that says to me that the New Zealand economy is just as bad as I think it is.
Yeah. What's annoying, we're going to have to just read a million stuff articles, LinkedIn posts, news about this OCR drop, and it could be like, hey, you've actually got a floating mortgage. You should have just gone and refixed it a year ago, and you would have saved 2.5%. Like, the time for it to flow through the economy, people are now buying townhouses. I'll go buy another site and get consent or build or deliver them. It takes a long time to flow through. Hence why we always overreact and underreact in every cycle, every interest rate. Because unlike Australia, we're all general fixed rates, so the time and whatever. Yeah, sure.
Well, it's once again, it's too much government intervention, isn't it? It's like these underwrites. We could end up getting in a position where the only development that really takes place is taxpayer funded. So, you know, a lot of the development going on is KO, Housing New Zealand, social housing, and now these government underwrites. So what's next? Is the government going to underwrite because the builder hasn't got the funding he needs? So maybe we should underwrite the builder. And the excavator needs a new digger, so maybe we should underwrite the excavator. And then, you know, and it's all just about sucking up to politicians, right? So whoever sucks up the most, they get the most money. And this is something that Labour and the Greens were doing, right? That huge amount of kind of nepotism and, you know, these billions of dollars from the COVID slush fund that no one can track. They were funding all their mates. I thought that was a lefty thing to do, but, you know, is the right going to do it as well? Is that just New Zealand today? Is this, we're just happy with this, that the government knows best and nobody should be able to run their business without government intervention? It just, I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me.
Well, there's one of two ways it can really go for construction. Either productivity keeps dropping, where just nothing works anymore. No matter how cheap land gets, by the time you pay everyone, talk to everyone, it's not viable. Or we actually just start draining the swamp, push back on the industry, get these efficiencies, get the productivity, and actually be able to then pay people more that actually make a difference, be able to drop prices on your product, be able to make better quality homes or lift the standard without the government saying, oh, we have to update the building code and your small retail shop now needs a point R value commercial shop window that's going to cost you an extra 20 grand, even though it's a bloody theory. And I think it's really going to go one of two ways. And I think what you touched on was bang on, John, where Labour and the Greens sort of thought they'd be making everything really good by just borrowing and spending money for stupid things like reports this and this slide and this council building or whatever it may be, where it's more going, how do we actually get productivity to increase? Because that's the only thing that's going to make a difference. And it might result in mass unemployment, but that's probably better than economic failure, on an extreme example.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look at all the extra cost that's just gone into construction. I mean, I don't know, just pick one thing. Like, how much has your building materials increased in the last 5 years versus how much more do you spend on consultants percentage-wise?
I wanted to run my day for some reason. I went through old quotes from 2017. And some items like an internal door is the same price. And a shower is actually got cheaper. And you're like, well, how can a shower get cheaper in 7 years and internal doors stay the same? As you said, buying power would have got slightly better. But then what's gone up massively was like surveying a double or engineering a double. And it's the same thing with mainly labour inputs and outputs. Wages haven't doubled, but the guy that imports the shower or some of the shower can drop his price over 7 years. Internal doors can stay the same, but somehow the consultants can get double or triple for meeting the same engineering code and generally the same infrastructure code. And then some other products might have tripled. And you're like, none of this makes any sense. It's all made up. We live in a society that wants to add their margin on of 15, 20% just for touching the product briefly, or even just ordering on behalf of, when no one wins, just 4 or 5 people trying to take 15%. So no one makes enough money to pay anyone anymore. And there's people that just need to be cut out of that chain.
And the cost of housing goes up, which means home buyers are taking on more and more debt and end up living in a life of servitude to the Australian banks. And it's
it's also like the council thinks the issue is, the way we fix this is we've got an infrastructure problem, let's increase development contributions. Whereas my opinion is we pay development contributions because, one, we're required to, but two, the emphasis to cover the cost of infrastructure for the increase in density. And you go, how many things have Wellington have been charged development contributions for 30 years? How much has been accrued? What is the state of the infrastructure? What was spent from what was raised? They've fundamentally failed at their legal obligation for their side of the contract. But somehow their way to fix it is put it up and charge us more and force us to pay.
Yeah.
But how does that make any sense?
And Hamilton's exactly the same. I have multiple projects held up because of that one specific one on Brooklyn Road by Claudeland's Event Centre, right in the centre of the city, 17-unit site, no sewer infrastructure. So where are the millions that I have paid in development contributions over the past 20 years to Hamilton City Council? Where have they gone?
Well, I used to say to Christchurch Council, after the earthquake, I said, there was, say, 12,000 people living in the city. There's now 5. So until the population is back to 12,000, why should I have to pay this? Because there is no increase in demand, because there is less people than what there was. And actually, they did bring out a development contribution freeze policy, which was really useful. And to be fair, Christchurch Council is one of the best for DCs, where they do a sensible approach on infrastructure in the city is fairly good, so the per household cost is less. If you go to Akaroa, an hour and a half away, there's still a capacity. So yes, you have to pay 80 grand per house you want to build there. And it's intelligently done relative to what is the likelihood of that cost increase. And then where the vacuum sewer is, surely they go, this is a capacity. It's already new after the earthquakes. We don't have a budget for it, so you just cannot increase the density because we don't want to create this problem that will occur if we facilitate this. Even though they should have had better foresight when they replaced the network after the earthquakes, at least they're not creating a bigger problem. And I always go, rates. Yes, rates they try to say don't cover costs, but where I'm sitting, the site was empty. It might have been, I don't know, making it 20 grand a year for rates. There'll now be 111 dwellings that will probably get charged 3 or 4 grand each. And council haven't paid for any of the infrastructure to do it. And
Exactly.
we have to use private waste collection now. We pay the power, we pay the naval people. Yes, they'll use more water. Yes, there'll be more toilets being flushed, but we pay for all the upgrades, and the rate will increase just to this building might be, I don't know, 400 grand a year. You can't tell me over that 20-year lifespan that $8 million won't offset the extra shit going down the pipe.
Well, a private business would pay for that income stream. They'd buy it.
Especially in a city where at 5 o'clock, when everyone goes from their office in the city to their house in the city, the network effect is way low because you've got the same amount of people in the same network. They're just going from their office to their house, all interconnected.
Planning is so abysmal. I don't know if there's big DC rises in Auckland. Some of them's greenfield, like Jury, 115 grand a house. That's going to help I laughed. There was this article in the paper and they said, it was a Turkey saying something like, oh, council says that house prices won't go up because of DC rises. DC's $115,000 plus GST, $20,000 in Westgate. Now, those are sort of greenish areas, although Westgate's one of New Zealand's largest town centres now. But what's happened in Mount Roskill and Tamaki, which is about 50, 60 grand a house DC and 100 grand a house DC, they've paid for the infrastructure and they're trying to claim it back off new developers for the stuff that's already been built.
Like, it's so wrong.
And that's
how it got this back.
And Westgate, you mentioned Westgate. What a disaster that place is. Have you tried getting into that shopping centre? I only drove in there looking for a car charger because I needed to charge to get back home. You've got a brand new shopping centre with one way in, like one lane each way to get. It took me 20 minutes to get from the log jammed main road into where the car chargers were, and then I find out that the car chargers are 10 kilometres an hour charging capacity. How am I going to get home with that?
And that's what I said. Like, they would have paid for a traffic engineer report, which would have gone to a junior, gone round and round, been challenged by a million people, versus going, who has built malls in cities? Let's ask this person that's done this for their whole career, how is the best way to do it with no qualifications, and then go, here's why we think this works. And John, the reason why you had issues getting under there were no roads. Had traffic management.
The developer is suing AT, so it's an ongoing issue on that particular. I mean, it's the turn is there. They've got road cones there, Blair. That's actually what stops you turning in the moment.
Well, this was a Thursday afternoon. Can you imagine what it's like on a Saturday morning? Man.
What does the government need to do, Blair, to fix infrastructure then? Because is this just a war between...
Ask the Navy. The Navy knows. They're good underwater stuff.
That's $200 million now. $100 million for the ship and $100 million on the salvage. It's gone. $200 million. That could have
How much are we paying Samoa for damaging their environment? There'll be another $100 million there, I guess.
$300 million.
But I suppose to fix it, I've always been, if they're going, what works, what doesn't. Infrastructure should not be linked to the government directly. So it's like, we're going to do a highway to Ashburton and actually change the government. No, we're not. And every infrastructure takes so long, costs too much. I don't know why we don't have a, here is New Zealand's 30-year infrastructure plan laid out, independent body, government can't fuck with it, funding sorted. Okay, if there's a shortfall, hey China, we want you to fund this. It is a toll road. Here's the return. After 30 years, it returns back to New Zealand ownership. You could fix it fairly quickly in a simplified manner without that much drama. But instead we go, let's get MPs to pay consultants to give us advice, to pay for more advice. And by the time that, we should probably make a decision the government's changed, or it's too controversial to do it, or we justify it and say there's no budget for it. It's an easy can to kick down the road to give a pleasure project, like a convention centre or whatever it might be. And it's
walking bridge over, a bike lane over the bridge, that's $50 million in consultant fees.
I've said for years infrastructure will be the biggest issue faced in New Zealand, where tax was founded for the purpose of defending your country, healthcare, infrastructure and education. And after the earthquake, 15 years nearly, you drive past Christchurch Hospital, there is still scaffold over the front entrance with white shrink wrap on it, and it drives me fucking mad. It's like, you can't do that basic thing right, having an entrance to the South Island's largest city hospital, and you want more tax to do more dumb shit in this big social experiment where you just actually don't know how to do it. So you pay a consultant that also doesn't know how to do it and no experience of doing it to then try to see what to actually do versus just winging it and just doing what is physically and practically what you need to do. You ask everyone for permission. You ask everyone else for permission.
Yep, and some of the I got an engineer once specified we had to do driven piles in Hamilton, and they specified salt water piles, like piles you'd put in for a walk.
Yeah.
Marine grade. Just marine grade, just ridiculous. But talking infrastructure, I mean, there's at least 3 single lane bridges between Pauanui and Whitianga, for example. I mean, who in their right mind would ever have built a single lane bridge? I mean, that's a New Zealand thing to do, isn't it? Like, we build the absolute minimum infrastructure that we can. So by the time it's finished, it's already over capacity, right?
Yeah, that is the summer. Well, it's done. Need another one, more too small, and it took you.
Yeah.
And the cost benefit of going, let's just put 2 more lanes on this motorway to Rolleston instead of just 2 lanes. Let's make it 4 lanes each way. It's going to take 10 years, and now it's good for 50. So you finish it and go, actually, look, congested narrow to go. And it's brand new.
You described Auckland Harbour Bridge, Tauranga Harbour Bridge. As soon as Tauranga Harbour Bridge was built, they had to start building the next one next to it.
Hamilton to Auckland, the motorway, it's only 2 lanes each side. How long
It's not
before
2 lanes. It's not bloody 2 lanes. It's still
it's not
one lane.
Yeah, it is 1 lane most of the bloody way. Oh my God.
What are they doing there?
What are they doing?
When we build a building, it has to have a lifespan of 50 years. And when they build infrastructure, let's take 10 years and have it already not fit for purpose and lasting. And let's pay way more money for engineers and consultants how to build the road, which won't last 50 years and is under capacity. It's like knowingly being able to underservice your building with power, water, fibre, etc., and being allowed to do it.
Okay, Blair, what's a win? What gets you up in the morning at the moment? What's
people
really
one by one to account that don't do what's right for the industry. And it's actually that, what's a win is like sitting here, watching people work really hard, actually producing the outcome and being like, what can I do to get a better outcome, make their life easier, and hold the person to account that was trying to create more and more inefficiencies, or that doesn't actually serve a purpose because no one's going to tell them and hold them accountable, because there's very few people that can represent the client plus the contractor plus the person that's buying the house, etc., and not be afraid just to challenge whether it be a counsellor or an engineer or professional and say it is not okay just to not have your detail done properly and it costs someone $60,000 more, which isn't just me, it's my money I have to cover that with. It's in the customers. How's this going? And it's like one by one, you see that I slowly start to get it, or some of them just don't get it at all, and you realise just how broken it is. So I actually call that a bit of a hobby. No one gets that, it's a sport, that. But just construction, like working with the right people, working hard, creating a product which will be there for a long time, making a difference, whether it be creating wealth for an investor over time, providing someone the first homes they want to have a pet and their landlord won't let them, and just also the shit you see when you knock down an old house. It's easy for someone to say, oh, that needs to be renovated or repaired, its character. They are horrific houses. Cracked window frames, all rotted, no insulation. Like, you just can see the health benefits of someone going
The mould, the black
and
mould.
I don't want Christchurch to become a donut city where it hits 5 o'clock and everyone leaves. I really want a higher CBD population, which is why we focus the most here. And it's also when people realise they don't have to commute 5 hours each way a week. They can save 10 hours a week. If they work 5 and then also have 5 hours more time with the children or their significant other, if you worked out what that bears a percentage of their disposable income, having an extra 5 hours they could work, plus the quality of what they could achieve with quality time with those extra 5 hours, it would be a huge difference than what they're currently faced with when they're commuting 1 hour each way every day. But I really
Commuting's it's a horrible waste of time. It's soul destroying, really. Sitting in traffic, horrible.
The less you commute, the more impatient you get. You have to drive somewhere. So
well,
I literally
in
Uber to work
Auckland,
for $7.
in Auckland, you have to arrange your meetings around the traffic. You know, if you want to cross the bridge, basically you have to have meetings at lunchtime or in the opposite direction. You got to worry about someone coming from the shore. I mean,
you work from home though, don't you? So it's okay.
I work from the beach. Yeah, that's what I posted yesterday. Just as a bit of sarcasm.
The main thing is improving quality of life for individuals who don't realise that they're missing out based on where they currently live or rent or whatever, or not being investors, they're becoming an investor and fast forward their life 10, 20 years. That's what gets me up every morning.
So it's in that central Manchester area then, you're doing a lot of one bedroom units, 2 bedrooms, etc. Are you doing any larger sort of homes where a family can do the infill? Does that work really?
We've got a couple of 2.5 bedroom ones, but that's why there's no point fighting what people potentially don't want or the masses don't want. And like, I don't see there being a huge market for families living in the city. Like, yes, there'll be a few people that do live in the city as a family unit or want to, but you know that you're up against cheaper houses in the suburbs with other families around them in different school zones. And then you sort of go, what else is the market for a family type home of 3 bedrooms? It's limited. And hence why all the 1 beds just about sold, all the 2 beds are. And we've got to think about 6 of the 2.5 bedrooms left. And it's either affordability or an investor going, what is the added upside spending more to get that extra bedroom when my return's going down? So sort of just try to do a product that will suit the most amount of people based on where it's located.
What's the
Speak-
No, go, John. Sorry.
Speaking of investors, why would you still invest in property in New Zealand today? I mean, you've got the risk of interest deductibility going again, capital gains tax potentially coming in. The councils continue to increase rates. They increase insurance. I mean, rates are going up 100% in Hamilton over the next 3 years. So is the development contributions, by the way. But why wouldn't you just buy shares or just invest in something that people can't see? And because I think the fact that people can see it, it's an easy target. Right? I mean, you saw recently when Luxon was in the paper because he avoided paying 70,000 tax when he sold his apartment. Well, where was the article about the person who sold their share portfolio and avoided paying tax, or sold their farm or their business, or anybody else except a property investor? Property investors have been singled out as the evil. They are the people who make homes expensive. They drive up rents. They're just the bad guys. Why would you still buy?
I suppose, well, actually, you walk into your bank, Westpac, or whoever you bank with, and go, "Can I borrow $1,000? I want to borrow $400,000 off you, buy $500,000 of your own shares." They'll tell you to get out of their office. But if you say, "Here's $100,000, borrow $400,000 to buy this house, and also this house will be insured in the event of flood, fire, earthquake, or someone not paying or damaging it," they'll happily give you that money. So they back the property market more than they back themselves from that perspective. Probably also some legal laws around leveraging your own money to get people to buy your shares and drive the price up. And then it's also going, when you think when someone has a business, I need an overdraft facility, I need a loan for stock for my business. It all comes back to, do you own a house? Can I just draw down against your mortgage? And there's also the reality that everyone needs somewhere to live, and either people need to create supply like ourselves as developers, and you do generally need some investment sales to get projects off the ground. And then what's the alternative? No one builds a house, no one buys them, government owns them all, BlackRock comes to buy them all. So it's more just going...
Which is coming. What do you think about build to rent?
I still don't understand. Build to rent's just, like, that's what property investors are. They buy a house and they rent it out.
Yeah.
I can only build them. Individuals buy them, rent them out. That is building to rent.
Yep.
But what's the difference? I don't get it.
No,
I've been doing it for 20 years, and now it's a new thing.
I don't get. I know there's people going whole complex. It's like, won't say mass investor buys whole complex. Won't let anyone buy it themselves. As opposed to developer allows investors and homeowners to buy in the same development because they thought it's unfair that someone that wants to buy their own house and can isn't allowed to. Like, it's all just narrative. It's all made up.
It is. It is all made up. Except if you're playing the right narrative, then as a foreign investor, you're welcomed. Whereas with another narrative, as a foreign investor, you're banned.
You're not going down the rabbit hole, are you, John? I just do that for open meetings. It keeps people keeps on the edge. I had a meeting with a Canadian lady the other week. I was a bit worried about it. She loved it. Asked if she could have a house because it's quite right.
Well, I wonder how much of our economic issues. Well, I mean, it's not going to be a huge amount, but I think it's going to have an effect. The fact that the election in the United States is on edge, right? It's 50-50 at the moment. Harris, Trump. The US is massive. It's a massive partner for us. They're huge lenders. I don't know if they're still the biggest economy, them and China. But imagine if you're a huge American business and the policies between Harris and Trump are like poles apart. Everything's on hold, isn't it? You'd just be waiting. There must be so much just sitting and waiting. Is it the 7th of November, I think, the election, somewhere soon? I mean, once the election's out of the way, in the past, 70 or 75% of the time after the election, the US election, the share market has gone up, regardless of who's voted in. That doesn't matter. It's this pent-up demand. It's just waiting. How much do you think that's affecting New Zealand and the waiting that's going on here?
Auckland property market is a light switch. Just offer it's on generally. Christchurch is a bit like a light dimmer, whereas Auckland's just a switch.
Yeah.
Something will change. All these houses will be sold at the same price because interest rates have gone down 0.5%. Fundamentally hasn't made a huge economic difference. Just, I mean, it's human nature.
Do you think 50 turns the switch on in Auckland?
I would just say the day that I sell my last finished house in Auckland will be the day that the market goes up 10%. That's one, how life works, and two, how supply and demand works. But it's never linear. It's never just grab and sell at the same pace, buy land at the same pace. It's always building too much. There's an oversupply. Shit, now we're out of houses. Now houses are gone. Let's try to build some more. That's just, and yeah.
I've seen it. I bought my first rental in '97, so I've had it about 27 years, and it's either dead, it doesn't move in price for years, and then in the space of 2 or 3 years, it doubles in value. So people talk about houses doubling every 8 to 10 years or whatever it might be, but in reality, they double in a couple, don't they? Like 2020, everything went up about 30%. Boom, one go. If you didn't own property, you missed out. So it is. It's a switch. It's on, or if it's off. And right now it's off. But it does feel like it's starting to warm up. I think the fact that we had the 25-point cut, now another 50. And I don't know what the narrative is. I haven't seen the news, but I'm expecting they'll be talking about another one in November and potentially another one in February. So that's all. It's sentiment, isn't it? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people believe rates are going down, then they believe house prices are going to go up. So they're going to buy houses, which forces prices up.
Which then also means that because prices are going up, it creates inflation, which then determines that interest rates are going to have to go up to bring prices down.
Eventually, but that takes a little while, right?
But
the
I
rest of
think
the
it's more
economy,
like
the rest of the economy is holding it all down, though, isn't it? And jobs as well.
Yeah. But if you just literally never watch the news, never read the media, and then you just do your job to the best of your ability, go, I think I've got enough money saved up to buy a house, go and talk to a mortgage broker, you'd have no idea if that property is worth that or not worth that, whether the rate should be 4, should be 7, just either say it works for your life or it doesn't, as opposed to us always being obsessed to going, what's everyone else saying? Who's just going, I want to buy a house. I've got my money saved up. Go to the bank. Does it work? Does it not work? It would completely change how an economy functions if everyone did that.
Yep, it would. And if people, actually people have asked me many times for advice around, around property and when they should buy and, how do I know when's the right time and whatever. And my answer is always the same. It's can you afford it? If you can afford to buy, then buy. As long as you've got a buffer. I don't like it when people have put every cent that they've got into the property and something goes wrong, one of them loses their job or anything can happen. You've got to have a buffer. But other than that, just buy, because it's really all about time in the market, isn't it? You've got to if you own a property for a period of time, you're going to do okay generally. If you're talking 10 years or 15 years, chances are it's going to be worth more. And that's just the way the economy works. I mean, inflation is driven by creating more money, right? It was Milton Friedman who said that inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. And what he was talking about was governments constantly creating new money to fund their ridiculous schemes, to pay for all the rubbish they dream up to try and buy votes. And so more money means more money chasing the same number of goods, which pushes up prices, which we call inflation. Or today, we've rebranded it, haven't we? It's called cost of living now. It's not called inflation anymore. I think this is due to our... Sorry?
Focus that we then raise taxes so we can get more money to do more dumb shit and pay off more stupid things we've already done. And then we just do what's called CPI and go, the borders are open, so what we're going to do international travel, which means there's now more inflation because we think people are more going to fly internationally this year. And we'll choose what baskets of good items we want to push in there and what weighting to apply to then decide what the inflation rate is, then drive the narrative of what we want, even though we're not meant to and even though we're all separate. But it's all made up.
It's all made up, and all depends on the narrative. And the narrative at the moment is that more taxes will fix everything, right? If we just bring in capital gains tax, then everybody will be well off, and everybody will be great.
The
double development contribution.
Right,
it's not there. Just 10x them.
Okay, gentlemen. Here's something.
Million per townhouse and development contribution.
Yeah. Won't put the price right. Here's something. Now, someone's posted that developer cashbacks can now be included in the buyer's application as a source of deposit. What do you think about that? Now, apparently it's capped at 10 grand. I haven't seen that. I don't know if this is an urban myth or if this is real.
No, it's true. They do. They do hate us because they put a term and condition that it can't be a cashback for furniture or rates and contributions. They mostly reached one of ours and wanted to not let us be privy to it. But the problem is it comes back to the valuation model. Is if you've got someone in their fourth house and you go, I really like your business, you've come direct, you're not paying a sales commission, whatever it is, and you give them a $20,000 discount at settlement, when the valuer gets the valuation done for your neighbour who you've never dealt with, you had to pay a sales comp, whatever your cost of doing your business prior, they'll then value that lower because you sold one for 20 grand less. So rebates are generally used to keep fair reflection of what the actual market value of the property is, much like the Toyota Hilux concept. You buy 10 utes, you get a discount. If you buy one ute for more, that affected. Doesn't mean every Hilux is worth less. And banks, for some reason, they just don't get that concept, and valuers either don't get it or their valuation rules and standards don't facilitate it. And valuers have to value things as if you've got 3 white utes all lined up in a row. They all look the same. One could be an Amarok, one could be a Grey, or one could be a Hilux, and they compare them as if they're identical. And just, it's just like, is it a good policy? Is it not? It doesn't actually make a difference. Just the bank will say, can you afford the mortgage? Does your valuation make it up? And if the bank goes, well, you've got a cashback in here, that doesn't mean us that we're going to make you drop the price, then the buyer will go, well, I can't afford the house now, or I'm going to go to another bank, or I'm going to go to a different mortgage broker, or they'll just ruin the deal for that first home buyer, thinking they're protecting them and thinking the developers tried to inflate the sale prices when they haven't.
I think it's actually a misleading headline. Surprise, surprise. The media would never use clickbait. My understanding of it is it's the actual cashbacks from the lending. If you go to ANZ and you get your cashback, you can apply that to your deposit. That's what I was explained by a mortgage broker yesterday.
Okay,
that's different. That's the way they understood it.
Now, what it's saying is, because I had to read it, got sent it in, the developer can declare it as a cashback, and the bank won't impact that against the sale price. So when that client goes unconditional, the developer has to pay that cashback to the trust account on behalf of the purchaser. The purchaser is allowed to use that towards their deposit, effectively apply leverage to it. Whereas normally you don't do your cashbacks that way because you're transferring money to a trust account. You can't touch their deposit. Why should they get it out of trust? And then, it's no different than just saying, hey, John, you're a first time buyer, you're virtually a deposit. I actually really like you, I want to help you. I want to give you 10 grand towards your deposit. So when you go to the bank, you can add your mortgage. That's all it is. And now they're trying to control how it's done, how it can't be done, etc., etc. As opposed to just let people know what they want, let valuers value stuff what they want. If the purchase price is too high on the contract, it's going to be reflected, but it's not fair to reduce it on the contract because a different price was given. It's either worth what's on the contract or it's not. It's not. Let's take the discount off, and then let's put that into the equation that everyone else didn't get a discount, and so the house is worth less. Why can't developers gift people money to help them buy a house? Because there's always a valuation condition anyway, and the standard is so rigorous. Either the valuation is there or it's not. But that's the thing. How much better would it be if you could actually go, I want to help this person. Here is money towards your deposit. Here is furniture for your new home, because you're not doing all this bullshit to create the house. And banks will go, oh, John, you gave them furniture. We need to reduce what you sold that house by $20,000. And now your buyer needs that 20 grand. You just gave it for the deposit again. And you've just copped up.
I don't know why do they continue to make it more difficult for home buyers? Why do they keep trying to lock them out? I mean, the debt to income ratios, that's just going to lock out home buyers and first time investors. The triple CFA locked a whole lot of people out of the market. Another one of horrible things that Jacinda did. They just keep bringing in more and more and more rules to lock investors out. I mean, the home ownership rate in Hamilton is 53.5%, right? Yeah. It's absolutely appalling. And I've never seen, in the 20 years I've been doing this, I've never seen a government or council bring in any policy to make it easier to buy homes.
Because it's policy that makes it easier doesn't create jobs to enforce policy. Because reducing regulation and facilitating something is directly correlated with having less people involved. You have triple CFA, imagine the amount of people and hours and spend to create triple CFA and force it.
Oh, massive. And then all the bank and all the mortgage brokers and everyone having to upskill and change all their software systems and all the people employed.
And if you're a consultant, we want you to advise us, John, on how we can better run the mortgage sector. And this broker goes, should if I invent triple CFA, I can fucking just be paid this for the next 8 years while we roll it out. Because there's no incentive to say, do nothing or actually remove this over here. The job done. And if you produce a one-page
like creating a new health authority in the middle of the biggest health crisis that we've had in the country during COVID, or bringing all the politics together and then breaking them all apart, and just all of that stuff, which actually creates no value, but it creates a lot of jobs for your mates, right?
Just the best thing, the worst thing that can happen in life is someone says, "Hi, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help you." Because when does it actually help them create?
There's a good comment I heard the other day. Every dollar every dollar you get given from the government increases your burden by $2.
And then you look at how many net taxpayers there are in New Zealand. It's shocking. It's like for every one person you support 3 as far as the net tax. It's some terrible statistic.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I hope you enjoyed it and, more importantly, learned something valuable. Big thanks to Blair for joining us and sharing his insights, as well as to Andrew Crosby for his contributions. If you're keen to learn more about property development, or if you're already in the game and looking to level up, come and join the Property Development Club. Head over to propertydevelopmentclub.com to get started. The first step is taking our comprehensive course, where I've laid out a 17-step process focused on townhouse development. It includes 40 interactive videos, about 5 hours of training, packed with hot tips, secrets, and strategies to help you save money and fast-track your projects. It's everything I wish I'd known when I started out. After completing the course, you can apply to join our Property Development Mastery Program, featuring weekly mentor masterclass calls every Wednesday at midday. We cover various aspects of property development and bring in experts to share their knowledge, whether it's financing, surveying, or construction. We've got you covered. The Mastery Program also includes a moderated community where we address your questions live during the calls, discuss real deals, and provide premium content. It's an incredibly valuable resource, and we're here to support you every step of the way. So don't miss out. Head to propertydevelopmentclub.com, grab the course, and see for yourself why it's worth 10 times the price. If you have any questions, reach out to us at supporterpropertydevelopmentclub.com. Thanks again, and all the best. John Kenel, founder of the Property Development Club.